Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. My name is Nicole. I'm from the IEN team, and I'm really excited to welcome Soph Shaw from Wake the Tiger. A quick intro about Soph. Soph has worked with some of the most ambitious companies in the experiential industry, directing 2.8 Hours Later, the world's biggest street game, assistant producing Boomtown, one of Europe's largest, most innovative arts festivals, and currently producing Wake the Tiger, the world's first Amazement Park. That is what she's going to be speaking about today. So without further ado, I will hand over to Soph. Please give her a very warm welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the Immersive Experience Network for inviting us, because we've come all the way from Brazil. And thank you for coming to choose to see this talk. I know there's other things you could be at right now. So I really appreciate you've chosen to see what we're up to. I'm Soph. I'm from Wake the Tiger. It's an amazement park, which is a phrase we've coined in Bristol. And today I'm going to talk to you about how unconventional design journeys can create magic. So first of all, I want to talk a little bit about who am I and how did I get here. So it all started with Boomtown Festival. It's the UK's largest theatrically led festival. The first one was in 2009. I joined the theatrical team in 2017. It's a fictional town in a music festival where you can become a citizen. The town generally satirizes and often questions real things that are actually going on in the world, although this is a fictional one with its own government and politics that's going on here. But it encourages people to find their own voice within both Boomtown and once you leave Boomtown. In 2019, we purchased a large warehouse complex and transformed it into Area 404. It's a theatre-driven apocalyptic nightclub. And the apocalypse choice kind of came to be somewhat ironic in terms of our theme, but I will come back to this. So, since the pandemic, I've been working with Boomtown's sister company, Wake the Tiger. Initially as creative development coordinator in the very early days when we're figuring out what is this thing, and then eventually as a creative producer. There are two of us in terms of creative producers. It's really lovely to have a fellow, basically a partner in crime, and that is the wonderful Summer Dean, who I have in gift form here from our last party. In terms of, so what is Wake the Tiger? Couple of basics for anybody that has never even heard of what this thing is. It's a permanent location-based experience in Bristol. It's for all ages, but has a particular family focus. It's about art, connection, and discovery. That's kind of the basics that you really need to know. I've got here the ad, it's only 30 seconds, that kind of nicely encapsulates this, which is currently playing on Sky. But the thing is I'm not here to sell Wake the Tiger to you. You can go down and see it for yourself. I'm going to tell you about how it all happened. I'm going to take you back to our favourite time that's ever happened, which is 2020. So things were obviously bad, especially anybody who works in Immersive. Bad times. For Boomtown, they just launched their new chapter of their festival, because it's a story-based festival. It comes out in chapters. This year it was called State of Emergency. And for Area 404, our brand new nightclub, which has done really well. We had a great Halloween, amazing New Year, and it was very exciting, one of the biggest nightclubs in Bristol. And we just opened a series of events called Rise from the Underground. That was all coming out, all very exciting. This happens, everyone's told to stay at home. And looking back, you'd think we'd almost planned those names. It's really bizarre, but we hadn't. Obviously, all of these events were then cancelled. So we're now in a situation where we are not just a festival business, but we're also a new nightclub business, and everybody's told to stay home, and the future looks kind of bleak. So, while social distancing, we started scheming. We had this incredible site. We had just invested everything into it as well, and we now can't open it to the public. But we knew that was for now, and it wasn't forever. So we re-looked at it. It'd only been open a few months, and we go, okay, how are we going to reopen this space? It is a lovely piece of Boomtown, Area 404, but it definitely represents the chaotic, messy side of Boomtown. There's kind of like fake blood, limbs hanging from things, yeah, quite intense. So we were thinking, you know what, there is way more to Boomtown than it just being a party. And not everybody knows that. But there's also a huge range of people who want to come to Boomtown, and maybe the festival medium is not really for them. And we knew this. So we took some time, knocked some ideas around, and we settled on, we knew we wanted it to be a space of art, connection, and discovery. Less about the party element that we do at Boomtown. And we wanted it to be for people of all ages to learn about themselves and the world around them. And we also committed to creating new IP, which we knew was going to be difficult. And we created the alternate world of Meridia. Meridia is a world that's facing its own environmental crisis. It's still apocalyptic, but this time there's hope, which is a bit different to what Area 404 was. So we began our journey, and we had the big hit from all of our cancellations and having invested everything into Area 404, so we didn't really have much capital. But we knew we had to move fast because we knew when people could start socializing and come out their homes again, we needed to be ready. So we were like, right, we're going to try and build this new thing. It was a bit of a crazy idea. And you have your conventional design journey here, pretty much on the left, of what the phases you would typically kind of go through. I mean, I'm talking very broadly here, but that's what you'd probably go through. On the right is what we ended up doing. And I'm going to talk you through it. So we needed investment. We had a concept that we needed to sell to investors. So we had to create this very quickly. And if they're going to invest, they need to see designs. So we were concepting, designing, and fundraising all at the same time. The designs needed to be exciting and wildly creative, but due to our reputation of having a very good track record of very high-quality set designs, we knew that they could trust that they were going to be good, and they needed to be pretty crazy and out there. And there wasn't the question of, oh, but can they build this? We've done it loads of times. We can do that again. So we had that on our side. In terms of the concept, it just needed to be robust enough that they got it, especially people who had no idea about immersive or had ever done anything like that before. It needed to be simple enough that they could get it, and they needed to trust we had an audience that we could pull and grab from and be like, they would actually come to this. And we did have quite a big audience. It was quite a wide demographic of audience as well with the festival, because the festival hasn't just attracted just young people, it's been quite broad. So we had that as well. So that was also the two things that were kind of in our corner. And this helped us get confidence. Once we start getting investment, we could then start building. And by building, we could show people what we were actually thinking, and that helped us fundraise even more. I'm now going to do the really clunky thing of moving back to a video again, so give me a second. So there it shows you quite a bit of that journey from that bit, from we've done the concepting, designing, and started building, and we're still fundraising throughout this entire process the whole time. We finally had a good chunk of the park built, and so we used this as an opportunity to do a pre-launch quite early than when you traditionally do a pre-launch. You do it just before you're about to launch, really, but we did it pretty early. I think this was in maybe about 3 months. We did it with our crew. We have about 5,000 crew members that we bring on. This is all external crew when we work with Boomtown. So we have a lot of connections, and we just kept it quite internal, and we brought these people in to test it out, which obviously has loads of great benefits. Always encourage to test where you can, because I know it's hard to. Got loads of good feedback. We found out which bits worked, broke loads. That was going to happen. It got people excited, which is great, because you're going through that slog where there are points where you're like, this is really hard. Are we going to see this to the end? So actually seeing people being like, this is amazing, was great. And it helped us find people who wanted to work on it as well. And so we found some really great collaborators and scenics and prop makers and chippies and things like that who were like, oh, I want to get involved. Awesome. Also helped us get more investment, because a lot of people needed to see things visually. They wanted to actually experience what it was like going through the park. They also wanted to see other people going through it and observe them going, oh, okay, I can see how this works. A lot of people who are investors aren't necessarily the most creative types, so you really have to hold their hand through that. And then it got other locals on board. So in Bristol, we got things like the local council on board. Visit West, they got to see it and saw that it's going to be a real big asset in Bristol. So that was really nice. But ultimately, we discovered there was so much infrastructure work that we needed to do after this. A lot of this had to be torn down, and not entirely starting from scratch, but we had to tear out quite a lot of it and almost go on a kind of a round 2. And this had to be quite a quick round 2. It was a very quick construction period. And there are lots of different teams that ended up working on it. So there was loads of different spaces. As you heard Graham describe there were like rainforests, ice caves, secret passageways, and we had different almost teams allocated to all these different spaces. And what was really cool about that is because it had all these different people's input. It gave you this real sense of disorientation and surreal feeling when you go through it, because you're just like, whoa, this is entirely different. Whoa, this is entirely different, which is really cool. But was a huge challenge for the creative team who were trying to work on the IP at the same time, to try and make a cohesive storyline that was going to tie all this together, because it was very organically just unfolding. And they managed to build some good foundations. So they established that the world of Meridia is coming to life with the inhabitants, which are Meridians, so the people that live there. They formed 4 elemental guilds, and those guilds are to try and save their world from environmental collapse. So a little mirror of what's going on in our world, similar to what Boomtown does with our world as well. So they kind of came up with that, and they started creating various different bits of narrative threads, but they were quite loose, and the idea was to be like, we're going to organically find it. So that was kind of the way that the construction process went. It was very organic, very kind of lots of different things. We're going to roll with it. And the main thing is that as long as it looks and is exciting enough and is amazing enough for you to go around it as a standalone piece, that will be fine. That's what we needed to do, and that's what we needed to achieve. And we did it. We launched. The launch was really great, and there wasn't any pre-launch. It was literally, the classic to the wire. Just before the first person comes through the door, you're still painting something, hammering something in. So no pre-launch, we just went for it. And it was really successful both in the digital space in terms of media and word of mouth. And we managed to get people through the doors and sell out days ahead. So it was a really great start for us. And of course, the big thing is going, okay, we've built this pretty nuts space. What do people think? And what was really helpful is Google reviews, of course. And this was one of the best ways to find out what people really thought. People are usually very honest. And in terms of our very positive reviews, over the first few months, I gathered what were kind of the trending words or themes that were coming up again and again that people said we were doing really well. So I think the biggest one was theming and atmosphere. We're really good at doing high quality sets and absolutely smashed that. You go into all the rooms and they were very, very good. And very creative, and a lot of people had never been to anything like that before. Maybe the closest thing they knew was maybe an art gallery. So this was really blew their mind for them. Wide suitability. We managed to actually attract quite a lot of both children and adults to this. Our creative director, Lack, who you saw at the beginning, he said he wanted it for everyone. And I was like, this is going to be so hard. Everybody. But we actually did quite well. Ultimately, I think our split is about 70% families, 30% adults, is what I think it's now sort of found its groove into. So it is predominantly a family attraction, and generally we managed to keep it quite wide in terms of the audience that are coming through, which is awesome. Interactivity, there's loads of interactive touch points, loads of it you can touch. Not much is behind glass or acrylic, so you can't touch it, which is a maintenance challenge for us. But people love being able to touch and feel like they can actually engage with the world. And the friendly staff. We did well with our hiring. Great staff. Awesome. So those were the main things that came up in our positive reviews, which was great because I feel like that's fundamentally, as a starting point, exactly what we were going for. Now, we're used to running festivals that only run for one weekend. We're not used to an attraction that's open permanently every day. So we did hire people from the attractions industry to help us figure out a lot of our operations and our processes. We've learned loads. A few things have been like the pains of the tech breaking and how to manage a maintenance team. If you give people any paper or disposable trinkets, they are going to litter immediately outside of your wonderful venue, and it's just going to be awful. Children will smash and grab their way through the park. Even if something is secured down, they will see it as a challenge to break it off. There's no strong super glue that is strong enough. And overlapping performances in your box office space, as well as it being an instructional onboarding space, can be too disorientating. So that's what we did at the start. So we've had loads of interesting lessons we've learned, and now the park is running much smoothly on a day-to-day basis, but had to really find its feet for this first time. And not only have we figured out operations, but we've figured out how we do other things. So we've got other sort of select... Oh, I didn't line up this video. Okay. Other select things that we've now managed to do based on what people were saying and what they wanted. So we have sensory sensitive sessions, which are for people to come and where we dull the lights, we dull the sound, and we make it a lot more gentle for anybody with sensory needs to come through, and they've proven really, really successful, and they are changing and evolving every time we do them based on feedback. Of course, we do parties. We're festival people, so we had to do a party. We do parties every season, and they have been going incredibly well. That helps us link in some of that narrative work we've been doing about what are the seasons within the world of Meridia, which has been really great. We have adult-only evenings if you want to go around without listening to children doing their screaming and things like that. Totally understandable. And they've also proved very popular. Really nice as well that we can have an attraction that's both fun for kids and makes adults feel like kids. Awesome. Group bookings, facilitating that, as well as school trips and birthday packages. So these are things that have happened just over the past year. I managed to get all these things in place. I was going to try and play, I might see if I can try and play this clip. That was our last party that we just did. And so it's a completely different vibe than it is during the day. And what's really nice about that, actually, this is a personal reflection, is I know Boomtown, most of the audience is first-time festival goers who are about 18. And although there's a wide range of people there, I know it's predominantly very young people. And what's really nice about these parties is we have actually quite a bit of an older crowd. And it's really nice to be able to have something which we can cater to both the young'uns who want to go hard at a festival and those who are a bit older who go, I want to do one night, and I'm calling it 2. And that's really nice. We've kind of managed to do both of those things, which I think is lovely. This is the graph, as it was referred to at work for a while. So for when we were trying to go, okay, we want to start figuring out a little bit more about what this thing is. We've sort of set this thing up. We've got a bit of an idea of what the experience looks like. People love the art. They love the secret passageways. Yes. But what do we really want to design this thing to be? Because we hadn't really done this work. So I was like, okay, let's take all these other things and I'm going to put it into very generic, vague places on this graph. So we had highly immersive versus highly interactive, which means like environmental storytelling versus interacting with touch points, where you've got an example being like adventure experiences, challenge experiences. And then on the other side of this graph, we've got narrative-driven, where you've got a storyline. And then down here, you've got spectacle-driven, where it's just like, wow, amazing, big art pieces, that sort of thing. And I was like, okay, where are we going to go? What are we going to commit to? And we really struggled with this. And that's because actually the Amazement Park fits in so many different parts of this. Different parts of the park fulfill different parts of this criteria. And I think we're still figuring out where we settle. I feel like we're maybe one of these 3. And we haven't committed yet. We're still sort of figuring that out. But this is something that we've been using as a guide to help us make some creative decisions about, well, is this going to be something that's really interactive and challenge-based, or is it something that's just more ambient and a bit more passive? We're still deciding that, and I think that's okay. But I know we've got at least these 3. We're fulfilling it in these 3 places. It'll settle. Give it a little bit more time. So in terms of the areas we really did need to improve, was story and pacing. These were looking at the negative reviews on Google Reviews, and these were the things that were coming up quite regularly. About the story is people didn't feel like they could grasp the whole story. It was maybe a bit loose. They wasn't quite sure on the characters' motivations, and also pacing. They were like, I wasn't quite sure if I went through too fast or too slowly. I wasn't quite sure what pace I was supposed to go at. So those were 2 areas we kind of expected to be the case, and was the case because it's where we really needed to put some more development into, which I thought was quite excited. There were a few things we had to think about. So there were those who came who just wanted to absorb all of the art, have fun finding secret passageways, and the story, of all honesty, was not much of interest to them. They just wanted to be like, look, we can go through this secret library by opening up this book, or we just wanted to be like, wow, I'm in the amazing room with all the lights. Like that's all they really wanted. But anybody who came because they wanted to immerse themselves in a rich, complex storyline, generally were a bit dissatisfied. It wasn't really built with that. And there was also things like people were wanting to go and be quite free. There's no maps. They don't tell you where you are. The space is intentionally disorientating. And you can't figure out whether you've done all of the rooms. And still, the founders are very clear. There will still be no maps. You have to just see if you found them yourself. And which for some people is so much fun. There's just a lot of freedom in being able to play and go and find out and see if you've done all the rooms. For other people, this linked with the pacing. They might do some of it, they're not sure if they've finished it, and they weren't quite sure what pace they were supposed to go at. So this left us at quite, I thought, an exciting place, because the story was still kind of broad enough that we can kind of do what we want with it. And the experience design, like in that graph, we could still kind of manipulate it to how we want. We hadn't really boxed ourselves into a corner where we've had to commit going, well, this is what it is now. There's not much we can do about it. There's loads we can do about it. We just want to decide what we want to do. So, starting place, re-looked at the vision. We had one before this, but this is the latest one. I'm sure anyone who's got a business knows to keep on re-looking at your vision, mission, etc. And for the vision, we want to use the power of creativity to inspire a world that works for all. So we knew that was our headline. What we do, we create amazement parks, which are transformative, empowering spaces that take people to an alternative world. Transformative and empowering being like the two key words we wanted to hold on to here. Through art and storytelling, we challenge perceptions, expand imagination, and encourage connections with ourselves, each other, and the world around us. And that bit was there from the very, very beginning, so that bit's never changed. Why we do it, the world is breaking. We want to highlight the issues, provoke ideas, and suggest alternative paths that give hope for our future. And then the word hope really stuck out for us. We wanted people to leave feeling hopeful, not feeling terrified about the future. We wanted it to be a place where you come and you feel inspired. So I thought this was a really nice place to start from. We've started looking at this a bit more closely and going, okay, what is it we actually want to do? So I then, next stage, went, okay, let's look at what we've got. And there were three sort of key messages that were coming out of it, because I'd ask people, what is this about? And they'll go, the environment. And I'll go, okay, cool. And then I asked some other people, what do you think this was about? And they were like, oh, it's about social responsibility. And I was like, okay. And then some other people would say, oh, it's spiritual. It's about getting in touch with your spiritual side, learning about healing work. So there were kind of three main things that were sort of coming out. And I was like, okay, I feel like these are quite broad, though, as topics. And so that's why people were coming out being like, I'm not entirely sure which one of these we're supposed to be communicating. Probably a soup of all of them, which is what it was, like a topic soup. And so I was like, okay, we've got three messages, but we want people to come out and go, oh, it's about this. And if they can say one word and it's really clear, that would be really great. And we wanted to keep all of those messaging because it's all very important, all linked. But we needed a priority. So I made a priority. Number 1, environmental. Number 2, societal. Number 3, spiritual. So at least we had an order priority we're going to try and get our messaging across. The next thing was, I was like, well, what do you want to say with these messages? Like, I'm sure with the environment, yeah, save the trees, but is there anything more you want to say that people can take away with them, which is a message that's a bit more than just, we like the environment, please save it. So I was like, let's find a real key message that you really want to communicate and get across. Can you find one that is like really urgent, really important, maybe not even said that much, because it's just one of the ones that sort of gets lost? And the one that we ended up settling on was raising awareness of the hidden but most important kingdom of life, fungi. And that links to real science and what mycologists are trying to do right now, and is an actual campaign to try and get more people to have more awareness of this. I'll go into more detail in a bit. Then we had our secondary message. So what was it about society you want to say? And we came with fix the future, challenging our consumerist society and throwaway culture, links to a real-world societal issue, and we'll have that as a sub-layer messaging going through. And the third one, subtle. Needed to be subtle because this is a commercial venture with lots of people coming in and lots of people who don't consider themselves spiritual. Fine. So we need to be really subtle with this. It's a bit like what we do with Boomtown. We trick people into meditation. So here we've got a lot of things going on in this one and about looking at embracing interconnectivity, exploring self-transcendence, manifest personal power, and challenge societal conditioning for transformative healing and link to actual real healing work. But like I say, we'll just keep that subtly in the background. So I want to go and talk about the main message that we ended up committing to in terms of why we picked fungi. So I said I wanted a message that was urgent, important for right now, lesser known, and would have a huge impact if we did actually spread awareness of it. So this is a message that we've got currently in box office now as you come in. It says, when we talk about nature, we often refer to the two famous kingdoms, flora, plants, and fauna animals. But did you know there's a third hidden kingdom? This kingdom is known as fungi, and it includes organisms like mushrooms. Some fungi we can see, but others are so tiny that we need a microscope to spot them. Fungi are incredibly important, even though they haven't always received the attention they deserve. They make up just 2% of worldwide conservation efforts. The FFF initiative is shining a light on this hidden kingdom by campaigning to add fungi to the conversation about nature. Here at the Amazement Park, we proudly use the term fungi to honour its equal importance with flora and fauna. After all, we wouldn't have flourishing plants and animals without them, so let's support their protection. So that's the kind of introduction, the setup of why. So we have flora, fauna, and fungi, so they are on an equal playing field to flora and fauna when you're thinking about conservation. And what we've done is we put 4 fungi trails throughout the park. So it's a different type of fungi that you can follow all the way through. Each one is helping the world of Meridia, that's in its environmental crisis, come back to life in its own unique, different way. And it relates to real science of what this fungi does in real life. And this also provides not only a storyline to follow, and all of the characters can relate now to the discovery of this fungi, but also gives you an anchor point to help with that pacing. For those who want to just go in, run round, do your thing, you can. If you want something to follow, there are now 4 different routes that you can now follow throughout the park. Here's me. This is with some Meridia oyster mushrooms that have been captured in a bell jar. They are having weird and wonderful impacts on the world of Meridia, such as cleaning up their oceans, leaving messages in lakes, and obviously providing some delicious eats. And in terms of coming back to how is this amazing, we are called an amazement park after all. It's because you enter a fantastical world where the fungi from your planet, Earth, just to make that very clear, is bringing the fantastical world of Meridia's plants and wildlife back to life. The amazing element is something that is part of your world. You have access to it, you can learn about it, you can support it, and your world is already amazing. We're making you aware of a hidden kingdom that you probably don't know about. So this is something that we've got as a nice kind of uplifting, the hope part that we wanted to put in our apocalyptic environment. So in terms of that last stage, adaptation and ongoing feedback, the trails are in, but we didn't do it at a completely perfect level where we got all of the details exactly as we want them. We put in the minimum trail so it makes sense and it's something you can follow. There's still loads of detail we're planning on building in and adding to it, but we wanted to put in something so we've got like an absolute baseline and we can tweak in response to what people are saying. And since the park has opened, we're now fleshing out a whole lot more of many elements of the park, not just these fungi trails, but there is elements we had in before which were kind of maybe a bit quick, such as on the left we have the guild symbols that were made. They're meant to look a bit kind of scratchy and handwritten, as we've got on the left. That's why they're kind of in that way and different to these ones here. However, these guild symbols, people really liked them because they got really attached to the guilds. It was probably one of the clearest parts of the storyline. But the symbols themselves, you look at it as a standalone thing and you probably won't be able to remember that's fire. So you look to that one bottom right, without looking at the others, would you know if you saw it and it wasn't in red? It's fire? Maybe not. Top right, would you remember that's air? Maybe not. So we've gone through quite a few transformations of various things, including guild symbols, which are now look like this. And are much clearer now when you're looking at it, you go, I can look at that as a standalone thing and go, yeah, that's definitely fire. So we're constantly tweaking and upgrading it, and I'm really grateful we built something which allows us to continually evolve, and we didn't box ourselves into a design sort of criteria where we now can't do that, or it's going to be really clunky if we do. We've actually built a world that's now growing, and because of this fungi that's growing, oh look, changes are happening. Funny that. So last thing I want to end on is about survival, because obviously immersive experiences are having a really difficult time. And anybody who's managing to keep surviving in this industry, absolutely fair play to you. Here are the final things that I think helped us survive. So MVP, I think it was mentioned in the last talk as well, minimum viable product. What is it? For us, we knew it just had to be something that would just really delight people in a very aesthetic way before we then were going to go into the depth of the story. We initially, when we were building the park, we did it with like cardboard boxes around the whole thing. So just to try and help people visualize this thing and just testing as we're going along. So MVPs, I'm absolutely for them. Seize opportunities when they arise. So we ended up having some very serendipitous conversations with people or meetings with people who ended up becoming partners or collaborators with us. And we said yes to a lot of things and just saw where things took us. Make use of a range of expertise. So we were obviously festival people. We needed to bring in people from the attractions industry, but we also brought in people from a range of other industries. We haven't just been like, we're going to stick to just these ones. And actually that diversity of knowledge, I think, has been really helpful. Be open to change. If you can build something which is designed so it can change quite easily, I think you're on to a winner. I know that's harder to do than what I've just said, but I feel like that's been the real benefit here. In terms of the changes you're making, they don't need to be big to make an impact. What is the smallest little bit of change that you can do that can make the biggest impact? And look for that. Not everything has to be a complete, we've got to tear it up and start again. Because when we opened and we were looking at the storyline stuff, we were like, do we need to start again? I was like, no, we don't. There are changes here we can do, and actually, if we got there with the funga thing. Have a strong, happy, fulfilled team. That's probably one of the most important of all. Balance the artistic vision with the commercial needs. At the end of the day, things need to make money to survive. What is your red line, and how can you creatively work around it all the time? Being inclusive and has helped us be as wide as possible in terms of the people that are coming, the people that work for us, and has benefited in ways we didn't even realize that it would. Ultimately, this wouldn't have happened unless Graham and Lack took risks at the beginning and went for this, and it's really paid off. So sometimes a risk is a good risk, and good leadership. This is Graham in his wonderful mushroom shirt. He is a fantastic leader for all of us. He's our MD as well as a founder, and I feel like that's core in where it all starts. My last note, I'll leave you on. I wish the text wasn't like just here. You don't need to wait for the perfect situation to take on that new project. While your design journey may be unconventional, if you remain adaptable, attentive, and willing to adjust along the way, you might discover something far more extraordinary than you ever envisioned from the outset. Because I can guarantee what we've got now is far beyond and far better than what we could have possibly tried to imagine at the start, because of our weird unconventional journey. So perfectionism is not always the way. That's me.
Hi, my name is Jonathan. I'm from the International Bateson Institute. I'm curious about how you involve children in the design process. If you're designing for 70% families, how are you taking a children's perspective on what they find fun and where their learnings are and where their edges are? And if you're going to do something for Hope, surely I'm curious about that process of how you're designing from a child's perspective.
So we involve children in the sort of testing and as we're building. So the benefit of actually building as we go along, even though some of the designs had to change, is we could put kids through it. And we listen to them, and we also let them get really creative as well and go, what do you think this room could be? Or we tell them what we'd like from this room, and they tell us what that looks like. So we involved kids, loads of different ages as well, to go through, because it's very different having a 4-year-old and having a 10-year-old going through. And I think the main thing that, as a lesson, that we had to adjust is actually the heights for everything, because something that is the right height for somebody kind of even in a wheelchair might not be the right height for a child. So it's making sure all the eye lines of everything is adaptable for various different people of different heights. So I think that was the main thing we ended up having to change, is a lot of the eye lines weren't quite right, and we had to lower lots of things. And I mentioned about how secure everything has to be. They will try.
Hi, thank you for that. That was really interesting. I'm Martin. I work in immersive learning. One of the things that we teach is innovation. So could I ask you for a moment to step into an alternate timeline where the pandemic didn't happen? What does Wake the Tiger look like? Please feel free to move on to another question and think about that. I realise that's a little bit of putting you on the spot.
It's a brain boggler. Alternate universe. Oh, do one alternate universe already. You're making me do two. I feel like it probably still would have happened, but not for a while, because we'd just built this nightclub that was going very well. I feel like we were destined to always end up with something like this, because the founders of Boomtown always felt like those values that they had were so strong, and I don't know if they would have come out in the nightclub. And I think they would have felt eventually, you know what, that bit's missing, and we're not communicating that bit, that really what we stand for is more than a party. So I think it was inevitable it was going to do that, but maybe that was just part of the process they would have gone through to get there, is my prediction of what would have happened.
Hello, my name is David. I work for creative director of a sort of micro-immersive company. We budget everything ourselves and do everything internally, but when you're looking for outside investors, where do you initially look? I mean, you had that great investor video, but where do you sort of place that, or how do you know where to put that into the world to get the response that you're looking for?
So there's often investor networks where you can try and wheedle your way in. There's also investor networks specifically for the arts as well, which is really a good place to start, because at least those investors are open to investing in something creative, when others are just usually looking for things like a tech business, because they'll understand it and they're just baffled by anything arts. But there is networks, which is what we used and we started getting into, and we turned up at pitching events as well and pitched. Didn't always mean we actually got anywhere, but we met people and then they spoke to other people and it sort of rolled out. It's about being really open in those networks about we're looking for investment, because eventually people just start talking, and it's like a snowball effect. But it's about not being quiet about that. We were very loud. We did it on all our socials. There was nothing secret about it at all. We were out there and we wrote letters to various people as well. It wasn't just people running to us. We put the work in and went and found people too.
So, thank you for your talk. I'm Alessandro, come from Italy, working with Chaos League collective, producing LARP and immersive experience. And through the journey you went with your group to create that, which was unique and very inspiring, which was the most difficult point, why, and how did you overcome the obstacle?
Great question. Let's go back. Most difficult point and why? I mean, I'm a little bit biased because I mainly came back in on the IP development. That is the main thing I've been working on. And I've really enjoyed the challenge of going, we have just a bunch of random rooms. How are we going to make it make sense? And I've really enjoyed it. I found that challenge incredibly rewarding. Kind of from a narrative design perspective, it's kind of fun being given like all of these sort of different parts of a puzzle and being like, figure it out. So for me, I've really enjoyed that. I'm sure it was a big headache for the founders before we started really getting into it before. What was the second part of the question?
What was, why, and how did you solve it?
How did we solve it? I think maybe the biggest challenge was fundraising at the beginning, when we realized how much more money we really needed, and therefore did the public Crowdcube fundraiser. And that was the thing that then changed it. We thought we could do it all with private investors. And then as the costs kept on going up and up and up, I guess maybe was the case with doing it so organically as well, we were like, we need to now open this out a lot more. Luckily, the Crowdcube was really successful, but it meant that you had to put a really good campaign in, because a good crowdfunding campaign doesn't happen on its own. You have to really invest in making sure it's really good. You have a good video, you get the right people talking about it, you get the right amount put in at the beginning, all of that stuff. You have to make sure you do that right. So I think the Crowdcube was possibly the thing that really helped when we were stuck.
Thank you very much.
That's okay.
Hi, I'm Ruth. I'm a creative director and narrative designer, and my last project was for Aardman. I'm also based in Bristol, and I just wondered if you could talk about the way that this works for a Bristol audience, because it is a very Bristol-type place. And I think if you put this in, like, Milton Keynes, for example, or something, would everyone just be like, what the fuck? So yeah, and you know, if you're ever thinking also of expanding, how would you kind of do that? Or would this translate to any other UK city?
So yeah, I know what you mean about it being quite Bristol. We also quite like it being quite Bristol. So in terms of expansion, there is a whole other floor that's currently going in. There's, it was hinted in the fundraising video that the ground floor was just the beginning. There is a whole other floor that's going to be opening up next year. That's currently being built right now. So the experience is going to be doubled, tripled, not quite sure how much bigger, I guess is what I can say. And that's actually because we've not just had Bristol audiences come, because there's only so many people in Bristol, and I don't know how many times they'll come. We had lots of repeat visitation, which is great, but actually the park is getting people from all over traveling to the park. The numbers are doing very, very well. And I think it's because it has actually quite a broad appeal. It seems quite Bristol, but it's very simple in its messaging. And we're really simple in that, you know, the ad that you saw, the Sky ad, it's quite basic. Come, see some amazing rooms, discover, be inspired. Keep it real basic. Don't use any mumbo jumbo that only you, if you were really interested in art, would go to. It's just a different day out with the kids. And what's been really cool is actually seeing people come in who would never go to anything like this. And you've got people coming from different parts who go, oh, I had no idea what this thing was, and it's completely blown my mind, and their perspectives get changed, and that's my favorite kind of audience to come, rather than just people who go to this stuff all the time. It's people who don't. And actually, this has managed to, because of its simplicity, make it really accessible to loads of different types of audiences. And gratefully, people are coming in from outside Bristol, but was really keen to come here. So London also knew about this. So, but yeah, it's not actually just been as Bristol as we thought.
Oh, hello, thank you very much. It's been really, really enlightening. My question is around the regeneration of the area that you... Sorry, my name is Chris. My question is around the regeneration of the area in which the factory was. How do you think you've had an impact on the local area?
Yes. Yeah, we're in one of the most deprived areas in Bristol. And it's an industrial area where there is not much there. And we have been working with local schools and local nurseries, because they have usually, again, because they're in the most deprived areas, don't have the least amount of resources. And it's been really awesome being able to bring something like this. And we've been doing like specific kids activities where we invite locals specifically from their area, free of charge. They can come and they can get creative. And it's just been wonderful doing it there. I'm so grateful we did it there beyond anywhere else in Bristol. I really think it's the St. Philip's area, by the way, and for anyone who's familiar with Bristol. I really think it's really benefited the area, and it's really wonderful seeing the locals come on board and engage with it, because there is a risk if you're creating something new, something artsy, you could be gentrifying the space and being exclusive. But we've tried to do the opposite and be inclusive. We even tried to engage with people at the very beginning when we were starting to do with the funding and get in touch with locals about, like, this is going to be happening, we're looking at proposing this, what do you want to see from this space? And from the very beginning, so really onboarding that local community. So we're engaging them and make sure it's something that's really of value to them. So that's been really great.
Yeah, I was just wondering, you said when you were doing the testing and you had to destroy and rebuild lots of stuff and redo it. So I guess some of that was changing the heights of things.
Yeah.
But what else? What were some of the other things that you had to change?
Some of the ways we designed things were not robust enough. So even though we'd made something quite beautiful, annoyingly, there was no way we could make it work in the park because it wouldn't last. So we had to take it out, which some of that was really heartbreaking because some artists have really invested a lot of effort into this. So we had to take out those pieces and be like, it's just not going to work in the park. That was one that really stuck with me, and now I'm more aware of that. I think when we go into that, we would be more aware with those artists as well, being like, there's a chance. We were like, this is a chance, this won't work. But as we invested more and more into it, you get more attached emotionally to pieces of art that went in. So some things were just not robust enough. Some things we had to change the heights. Some things we had to take out because of, like, we had to add some extra insulation into the walls, and therefore, regardless, we had to just take everything out, whatever was there, whether it worked or not. And some of that stuff was built so that it couldn't be taken back down again. It's like, once it's in, it's in. If we take it down, we're effectively ripping it up. And that was because of, some infrastructure or electricity stuff. We had to go in and line some cables somewhere where it turns out we didn't realise we needed it there. And it was like, wow, now we're going to have to take this thing out and rebuild it again. Often, obviously, when you rebuild things often go in better. But it was more of a gut-wrenching process than we anticipated, I think, with that.
Can we give Soph one more round of applause? Thank you so much for your time.